Have you ever wondered how a man born into the brutal reality of slavery could become one of the most powerful voices for freedom, not just in America, but around the world? This is the incredible story of Frederick Douglass, a man who broke his own chains and then dedicated his life to breaking the chains of others. Born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey around 1818 in Talbot County, Maryland, his early life was a nightmare. But even in this darkness, a flicker of hope ignited. At age 12, he was sent to Baltimore to serve the Auld family. Sophia Auld, his new mistress, initially saw him as a person and began teaching him the alphabet. It was a revolutionary act, though her husband quickly forbade it, claiming that literacy would spoil an enslaved person. The seed was planted. Douglass understood a profound truth. Knowledge was the pathway from slavery to freedom. From that moment on, he became a secret scholar. He cleverly tricked white boys in the street into teaching him letters. He painstakingly copied words from a spelling book and devoured every newspaper, pamphlet, and book he could get his hands on. Especially the Columbian Orator, a collection of speeches that introduced him to the powerful concepts of liberty and human rights. This book didn't just teach him to read, it taught him to think, to argue, and to dream of a world beyond bondage. His growing intellect made his enslavement even more unbearable. He was eventually sent to work for a man named Edward Covey, a notorious slave-breaker known for his cruelty. For 6 months, Douglass was subjected to constant labor and brutal whippings, but one day something snapped. When Covey tried to beat him, Douglass, then a teenager, fought back. For 2 hours, they wrestled in a desperate struggle. Douglass won. Covey never laid a hand on him again. This confrontation was a turning point. It wasn't just a physical victory, it was a spiritual resurrection. Douglass had reclaimed his own humanity. He knew he had to escape. His first attempt failed, landing him in jail. But his determination was unshakable. On September 3, 1838, disguised as a sailor and carrying forged papers, he boarded a train north. With his heart pounding at every stop, he journeyed through Delaware, Philadelphia, and finally to the free state of New York. He was a free man. He adopted a new name, Frederick Douglass, to protect himself from slave catchers, and began a new life with his wife, Anna Murray, a free black woman who had supported his escape. But freedom for himself was not enough. Douglass quickly joined the abolitionist movement in Massachusetts. At an anti-slavery convention in 1841, he was unexpectedly asked to speak about his experiences. Hesitantly, he stood up. What poured out was not a hesitant speech, but a torrent of powerful, eloquent testimony. The audience was mesmerized. Here was a man who had lived the horrors of slavery and could articulate its evils with breathtaking clarity. His career as an orator took off. He became a star of the abolitionist circuit, captivating audiences with his intelligence, charisma, and the undeniable truth of his story. However, his fame was a double-edged sword. The more people who heard him, the greater the risk of his recapture under the Fugitive Slave Act. To protect himself and to further the cause, Douglass published his first autobiography in 1845, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. It was a bombshell. It named names, places, and dates, exposing the brutal reality of the institution and becoming an instant bestseller. It also put his life in immediate danger. Forced to flee the country, Douglass sailed to Ireland and Great Britain. This 2-year journey transformed him from an American abolitionist into a global human rights icon. He was shocked and invigorated by what he found. In Ireland, he was treated not as a piece of property, but as a man. He lectured 2 packed halls, drawing parallels between the plight of enslaved Americans and the oppressed Irish. He was embraced by intellectuals and reformers who saw in him the living embodiment of the fight for liberty. His fame grew across Britain. Thousands flocked to hear him speak. His British supporters were so moved by his cause that they raised the funds to legally purchase his freedom from his former enslaver, Thomas Alday. In 1847, Frederick Douglass returned to America not as a fugitive, but as a legally free man, armed with international support and a new vision. Back in the United States, he launched his own abolitionist newspaper, The North Star, with the motto, "Right is of no sex, truth is of no color, God is the Father of us all, and we are all brethren." His paper became a leading voice not just against slavery, but also for women's rights. Douglass was a firm believer in universal suffrage, famously attending the Seneca Falls Convention, the first women's rights convention, and arguing passionately for their right to vote. When the Civil War erupted, Douglass saw it as the nation's chance to finally live up to its founding ideals. He became a key advisor to President Abraham Lincoln, relentlessly pushing him to make emancipation a central goal of the war and to allow black men to fight for their own freedom. He met with Lincoln at the White House, and through powerful arguments and unwavering pressure, he helped persuade the president to issue the Emancipation Proclamation and to authorize the formation of black regiments. Douglass himself became a recruiter, and 2 of his own sons served in the famed 54th Massachusetts Infantry. After the war, his fight for justice continued. He championed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which abolished slavery and granted citizenship and voting rights to black men. He understood that legal freedom was just the first step. True equality required economic opportunity, education, and protection from violence. In his later years, his global influence reached new heights. He served as the U.S. Minister to Haiti, becoming the first black man to hold such a high-ranking diplomatic post. He was a living symbol of progress, a testament to the idea that a person's worth is not determined by their birth, but by their character and contributions. Frederick Douglass passed away in 1895, but his voice never fell silent. From a boy who was forbidden to learn the alphabet, he became one of the most influential writers and orators of the 19th century. He showed the world that one person, armed with courage, intellect, and an unshakable belief in freedom, could challenge an empire of injustice and change the course of history. His life is a powerful reminder that the fight for freedom is a global one, and that the words of those who have known oppression can resonate across oceans and generations. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as I do, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with others. Let's keep the legacy of heroes like Frederick Douglass alive.